You might have something to add to this?
Well, our Parsha teaches us it's not so simple to add.
So this week, Parashat Vaetchanan, we find the very famous halacha, commandment, mitzvah of Baal Tosief and Baal Tigra, that you're not allowed to add on to the mitzvahs and you're not allowed to subtract from the mitzvahs. Now, I understand the halacha, the commandment of not subtracting from a mitzvah. I understand why you shouldn't take down from a mitzvah. We have rules, we have to fulfill them, we have mitzvahs, we have the laws, we have the guidance, that's what we have to do. I don't really understand why can you not add on to the mitzvah. Also, we know today that we do have chumras. People do add on things, do add on halachas sometimes to different mitzvahs. So what's so bad about adding something to a mitzvah? Why can't you accept upon yourself something to add on to a mitzvah? But even more than that, we're looking in the Psukim themselves. There's something very, very interesting because somehow this halacha, this commandment is connected to the issue, to the story of Baal Peor, to the sin of Baal Peor that Am Yisrael sinned back in Parashat Balak and Parashat Pinchas over there, the big avodah zarah that Am Yisrael did. How are these two connected? One commandment is about worshiping God, maybe even wanting to worship God more and adding more mitzvahs to yourself. The other thing is real idol worshiping, is avodah zarah. So how are these two things connected? What does Chet Baal Peor teach us about the commandment of Baal Tosief and Baal Tigra? What is Baal Tosief and Baal Tigra, not adding, not subtracting from a mitzvah, really about?
It's very interesting, and I guess the Torah is telling us that to truly understand Baal Tosief and Baal Tigra, we need to look at Baal Peor. Somehow in the story of that parable of avodah zarah is something that's going to teach us about Baal Tosief and Baal Tigra. So what is Baal Peor? Why was it seen as such a terrible avodah zarah? It's like the avodah zarah. It was the opposite of Am Yisrael. We know even Moshe is buried across from Baal Peor. It's like the two sides. What is Baal Peor? Why is that such an opposite of who we are? And when we try to understand Baal Peor, it's very hard to understand. Avodah zarah in general for us today is sometimes hard to grasp, but this one even more than any other one, because the way Baal Peor was worshipped was by defecating in front of the idol, meaning basically you're worshiping the toilet. I mean, how crazy can that be? Why was that something that even Am Yisrael went after? You know, they came out of Mitzrayim, they had God speak to them at Har Sinai. How is that something that was even attractive for them? What does that even mean? But I think if we take a deeper look at what Baal Peor is, we'll realize that it's actually an extreme case of idealization of myself. You know, we know Paro used to see himself as a god, but Chazal show us in the Torah that Paro used to go to the bathroom early in the morning so no one would see. Here, we're doing the opposite. Baal Peor is saying, whatever I am is godly. I don't have to be embarrassed in anything. The opposite. My most basic instincts, my most basic self, whatever it is, that's the God. That's the greatest. That's what I'm going to worship. And therefore, even my toilet, that's going to be my God. This is the extreme case of saying that whatever I am, however I am, I don't want to change anything. I don't want to improve anything. I don't want to purify anything. I don't want to fix anything. Whatever it is, as I am with all my instincts, whatever I am with all my desires. This is why this also goes together with the whole story of the girls of Moab. It all is connected of just being whatever I want, whatever my instincts are, and not only being that, but making that into the God. And maybe this is why this is connected to Baal Tosief and Baal Tigra. Because as you said, what's so bad about adding to something? Maybe taking away, but adding, I just want to do more. But I think the key thing is that someone who adds, just like someone who takes away, is actually idealizing himself. He got certain commandments. Hashem told him what he's supposed to do. He told him this is what you should do. He didn't tell him more. He didn't tell him less. When I go and say, no, this is not good, I'm going to add more, or I'm going to take less, or I'm going to do that, you're basically saying, God, I respect you. It's nice what you said, but what I think, that's what matters. What I think about what you said, what I think should be done, that's the true reality. That's the real God. That's how I should worship. So in a certain sense, Baal Tosief and Baal Tigra is the first step towards worshiping myself, towards worshiping what I think, what I say, what I do. Even when I'm going to do God's commandments, I'm still worshiping myself. I'm saying, no, I'm not going to do it his way. I'm going to do it my way. And from there, as Moshe says, even if it seems far away, it's not that far. Falling to the place of the most extreme case of worshiping yourself, worshiping your most basic desires and instincts. These two lead together. It starts from putting yourself at the focus of turning, even when you're worshiping God, turning that to to a form of worshiping yourself.
Yes, exactly like you're saying. Growing up, sometimes it was really hard to understand and actually comprehend what Baal Peor was about. What was the idea behind it? Where's the logic behind such an act? But nowadays, in today's day and age, slowly, unfortunately, it's starting to become more and more clear and more understandable. As Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says in Sichot Musar, that the chet of Baal Peor, what Baal Peor really was about, was exactly like you were saying. It's about breaking down all those boundaries, breaking down all those rules, breaking down all those red lines of what you have to live according to, what your life is about, what your inner rules is about, and disregarding everything, disregarding every single line, disregarding every single red line in the name of self-fulfillment, in the name of doing what I think is best for myself because this is what I want. This is what I am about because this is me self-fulfilling myself, because me self-fulfilling myself means, like you're saying, going after my greatest desires or even whatever I want. Not even a logical desire, but it's my desire. It's my will. It's my need. This is what I want. Therefore, I have to bring it into reality. Therefore, I have to do it. And we talk many times in our videos about self-fulfilling and finding your purpose in life and doing what you have to do and your shlichut in this world, your message that you have to bring into this world. But again, the most basic thing is bringing your fulfillment into this world through these set of rules of the Torah, through the 613 mitzvot that we have, with these very strong red lines, borders around them, to make sure that we don't slide into this slippery slope, into this world of self-fulfilling with no end, of where you can get to in the end of the day, self-fulfilling through idolizing your own waste, idolizing your garbage, literal garbage. That's where the world will get to when there is no limits, when there are no boundaries that are set in order to keep you to go straight in your path, to keep you going straight towards your fulfillment of your shlichut, of your message in this world. But again, through the values that the Torah gives me to live by, through the values that are set for me in my life, when you walk down this path, you will get to the self-fulfillment, not only of what you want to fulfill, but more importantly, what the world is waiting for you to bring into this world. Again, because my message, my shlichut in this world is based on what the world needs for me, based on what the world wants for me. And again, it's not only about you. It's not focused on you, what you are. It's not idolizing yourself and your own needs and your own terrible needs of worshiping your own waste. It's about fulfilling the potential that God gave you through the values that the Torah gave us. And also reading these Psukim, it's hard not to think about the Gemara that says Kol HaMosif Gorea, that this is exactly what happens, that when you add too much, like you were saying, sometimes when you want to add, in the name of adding things, you are justifying the fact that you are going away from what God is expecting from you. And by that, you're slowly pushing yourself away from what God is expecting from you. And slowly, when you add things or when you subtract things, you will slowly, in the end of the day, get to this new form of Torah, get to this new form of idol worshiping, of idolizing, and create these own rules where there is no rules, where there is no limits. And then after this, the next step after that is tovavo, one big chaos with no limits, with no borders, with no one absolute truth that everybody can live by, with no set of values that the whole world can live by. And when you don't have a set of values for the world to live by, as we just come out from Tisha B'Av, as we know from all the Nevi'im, when you don't have that, that's when chaos happens. That's when one big balagan, when you can't have a social society anymore, when a society can't act together. This is why we need these set of rules. This is why we need this one strong set of values to lead us in this world in order for us to fulfill our potential, to fulfill who we are supposed to be, each individual as an individual, self-fulfillment, but through these set of rules so that we don't get lost and chas v'chalila, we don't get confused of what we have to bring into this world and the message we have to deliver.
It's interesting, this concept of the Baal Peor sanctifying your waste. When you think of food, you think of eating, think of what the body does with the food. You take in the food, which is mixed. It has good and it has bad. And what the body does is it separates the two. It takes the good out of the bad and then it lets go of the waste. Maybe this is what Torah is all about. Maybe this is why there's such opposites, because what Moshe Rabbeinu is bringing into the world, what Torah is exactly about that, is going into the world, is finding the beauty in everything, is finding the good in everything, taking that good, using it, elevating it, and being able to let go of the things that aren't good, even if originally they were somewhat mixed together. Here, they're doing the exact opposite. They're waiting for all the beauty and all the good to be taken out, and they're focusing on the waste, and they're focusing on exactly that part that the body left behind. That's why it's such an extreme opposite. It's a question of, do we see this world as a world where we're here to elevate things, to look for the beauty, to look for the good in things, to look for the spirituality in things, to look for meaning in in things and elevate them and focus on them and through that raise the world up? Or are we supposed to look at the world as is and say, this is our God, we are our God, and it's expressed especially when going to the last, to the end, to the waste, to the most basic thing and saying even that is a God. This is basically the opposite of the Torah. Maybe this is why this final speech even of Moshe Rabbeinu, as we saw in last Parsha, is said opposite Baal Peor. Because this is our antithesis. This is exactly the opposite of who we want to be and what we want to be and how we see our role in this world.
Exactly. This is a super relevant message for today's day and age with everything that's going around, with so much confusion in the world. So many people are confused. What exactly is Judaism about? What is allowed within Judaism? What do we accept? What we don't accept? And the bottom line is there's 630 mitzvahs, there's a Shulchan Aruch, there's halacha, the things that we have to keep. That is the values that we live by. That's the straight line we walk in. And once you walk in those lines, self-fulfill yourself to the maximum. Make sure you find your message. Make sure you find your shlichut in this world, because the world is expecting for you to fulfill it. The world is expecting for you to do it. But we're out of time, so we'll end here. We'll just remind the viewers what we talked about the past couple of years. We talked about two very important concepts in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism. First of all, the pasuk of Shema Yisrael that we find in this week's Parasha. Why is Shema Yisrael such a fundamental pasuk? How did it end up being the most fundamental pasuk in Judaism, in our tradition? We'll link that video. And also we talked about the concept of davening. A lot of halachot of davening are learned out of Moshe's davening in this week's Parasha, because Moshe davened so much to enter Eretz Yisrael, and in the end of the day, his davening was not accepted. So why exactly are we learning halachas of davening from a davening that was not accepted? What is davening really about? What is the purpose of davening? We'll link that video too. Make sure you take a look. And if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to share it. It is an important message to share around. And like it, comment on YouTube below. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. And Shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and Emetz Hashem. We'll talk again next week.